The ideas outlined in this YouTube are visionary, and so it was appropriate that we start with vision from World Expo 88. Peter Racy here, and for the first time ever for the Legacy of Expo 88 YouTube channel, for Brisbane Tennis YouTube channel, and for the Anzac Day Precinct Mount Coot-tha YouTube channel. And that is important because this is a very important YouTube, and the themes that run through the three YouTube channels are very appropriate because this YouTube is being prepared as an introduction for a formal meeting that I've got with the Lord Mayor in relation to the 35th anniversary of World Expo 88. However, it has occurred to me that there is an underlying major theme, and the reason why I'm in front of the crest of Brisbane talking about this is because this crest was originally based in the Rotary Welcome to City fountain that used to be down in the entrance into Fortitude Valley, and it was a major statement for the city of Brisbane for the Commonwealth Games. And that event is important because that was the first time a world significant event had been held in Brisbane that actually was focused at drawing attention to Brisbane. And that is thanks to the works of Clem Jones. However, the Joh Bjelke-Petersen government responded by hosting and arranging to be held in Brisbane World Expo 88. And the significant thing is that before 1982 there were world significant events being held in Brisbane. Formation of Anzac Day, driven mainly by the efforts of Canon Garland, who was the secretary of the Anzac Day Committee from 1916 until his death in 1939. World War II, which found a world headquarters operating a base in Brisbane, courtesy of the efforts of a Queensland-born but later federal parliamentarian based out of Victoria, Richard Casey. And then later, in 1977, the Queen attended the bringing into being by the Herald of Arms the new coat of arms for Queensland that Joh Bjelke-Petersen had arranged. The first time that was ever done in the Southern Hemisphere, and it was a significant event. And today, that coat of arms is still the main marketing tool or presentation of the Queensland state government. But as I said, 1982, seminal moment, because after that, then you have World Expo 88, and then after that, you have the Goodwill Games, and then after that you have the G20. All significant, outwardly based events drawing people's attention to Brisbane. But the significant thing is that the package of all those is unique in the world, because no one can lay claim to having the first Commonwealth Games in the Southern Hemisphere, the second Commonwealth Games all up ever, and an Olympics. They may well be able to lay claim to something similar in years to come, but they will never be able to lay claim to also hosting a Goodwill Games, because there are no Goodwill Games. The Goodwill Games, which started in 1982 in Moscow, ended up in Brisbane 2001. And if we have a look at how unique our World Expo was, and it was unique because it wasn't a World Expo, it was a specialist expo, and the rules were changed to allow France to host a World Expo in 1989 to celebrate 100 years that the Eiffel Tower was erected, but they changed their mind and decided to build the Louvre instead. So our World Expo is very unique, let alone the fact that it was the last World Expo that the USSR ever exhibited in as a part of the Cold War wind down. And as well as that, we're the only World Expo in the world to have a museum based in a World Expo site and operating during a World Expo that pre-existed prior to a World Expo that still exists today, the Queensland Maritime Museum. So when you have a look at the package of all these events, they tell a really truly unique story and something that we can use to market Brisbane. And that is why it is so important that we reinvest continuously into the memory of Anzac Day as it was founded in Brisbane, that we reinvest into our narrative of World War II in Brisbane, that we reinvest in World Expo 88, that we continually look at the Goodwill Games and the G20, because countries around the world and cities around the world are spending billions developing a unique selling point, and we've got it. We just have to exploit it. So let's move on from here and have a look at some other aspects. Thank you. Moving on, I need to say that the end of these YouTubes in the 3 different channels have 3 different endings. And we are also going to come back to the Australian American Memorial, which you can see featured as the backdrop. But we are going to have a look at what is a successful example of a reuse of legacy. And we are going to have a look at a great opportunity that is completely and utterly unrecognised at the moment, which is a criminal shame. And then we are going to have a look at something that is an amazing historical record, which is not actually recognised, but should be. So let's move on. So one of the themes of this YouTube is that we should be more conscious in the adaptive reuse of the legacies left over from these various events. And no better example in my mind exists than the recasting of the Be Prepared statue, one of the Artbuster pieces from World Expo 88, which you can see directly in front of us. And we are at Scouts Place. Now, this was unveiled by Lord Mayor Roy Harvey, 22nd of February 1984, in celebration of 75 years of Scouts in Queensland. But it was the first leg of Roy Harvey as he prepared to make a bid to get the Olympics for 1992, which when Sally Ann Atkinson was elected as Lord Mayor, she took over the running on. So this is a very successful preparing of legacies. A post-Commonwealth Games legacy and a World Expo 88 legacy. Because if you look down, you'll see that that is a map of the Brisbane River. And one of the untapped gems of history sitting in Brisbane is this flagpole, which desperately needs restoration, which is from HMAS Swan and was on the ship when it was bombed in Darwin Harbour in 1942. Let's go to some of the important detail as the narrative of this YouTube develops. What you can see on the screen is Rod Laver, myself and Steve Minikin, a tennis tragic if ever there was one, at the unveiling and renaming of the Rod Laver overpass at Tennyson, which leads into the Queensland Tennis Centre. Now, Rod is well known as a Queenslander. What's probably not quite as well known was that he won the first leg of his second Grand Slam at Milton. And what is probably almost totally unknown is that one of the longest, hardest fought and most interesting tennis matches ever played in the history of tennis was against Tony Roach in the lead up to that first leg Grand Slam win. So what we're looking at here is the Australian American War Memorial in Newstead Park, which is also the home for Newstead House, which happens to be the home of Richard Casey's mother. Now, Richard Casey was the American ambassador that ensured that General Douglas MacArthur was based in Brisbane to direct the war effort on behalf of the Allies from an Australian base. And Richard Casey was also the president of the Australian American Association that brought into being this Australian American War Memorial, which happened to be Australia's first, and I think Australia's best looking. Richard Casey was the Foreign Minister who brought into Federal Parliament the ANZAS Treaty. He was also the Governor General, as Lord Casey, that brought Lyndon B. Johnson to Australia and to Brisbane, and lo and behold, the location of this Australian American War Memorial is at Lyndon B. Johnson Place. And is any of that particular history explained on the site of this particular memorial, which is used every year to host the Battle of the Coral Sea anniversary? No, it's not, but it should be. So let's move on to the very last part of the YouTube, which, as I've stated, is going to be different in each and every of the 3 YouTube channels. Thank you. And as promised, this is the most inspirational piece I know from the World Expo 88 Art Trail. And this is Chris Beadsworth's Showdown. This is the World Expo 88 Art Trail's most inspirational piece in my mind because A, it features the World Expo 88 Public Art Trail sign, and down the hill is Inukshuk. But across the road is a very significant World War II flagpole from the Victoria Park Barracks. So all in all, this is my choice for the most inspirational art piece.